Hey guys, how are we
Hello.
doing?
Hey, how are you?
Great.
Hey, welcome everyone. We're here on our Thursday LinkedIn Live day in the life, and today we are joined with Tim Shope from Endress+Hauser. And I'm joined here by my co-host Ann Wyatt, and this is the Industry 4.0 Club. We've started a little series here where we go through the day in the life of various different people and roles in the manufacturing space. And we started last time was 2 weeks ago with a CEO, president of one of the automation companies. And today we are joined here with Tim, who is vice president at Endress+Hauser, and is going to talk a little bit about his role and what he does on a daily basis and what are the things that he helps solve. And then we're going to just have some questions and have a good conversation. And as usual, when we have these LinkedIn lives, we're on LinkedIn, so we're going to be monitoring the message stream that's on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions for Tim, please feel free to enter them there, and we'll bring them into the conversation. My name is Jan Pingo. When I'm not here with Ann and other great people from both our Industry 4.0 Club and our entire community, I am a product leader for digital solutions at Ingersoll-Rand, where we are making our heavy-duty equipment, compressors and pumps. We're making them smart with IoT, smart and connected. So that's a little bit about me. Ann, on to you.
Oh, thanks, Yen, and thank you for that great introduction. My name is Ann Wyatt. I am also a co-founder of the Industry 4.0 Club. And when I'm not hanging out and running around with these amazing people from the I-40 Club, I am busy running my own recruiting agency. I'm super excited to have Tim Shope on with us today. He's just been a huge supporter of the I-40 Club, and he's always brings so much value to the conversations that we host. So it's great having you, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks for the invite. I'm not sure how much value I really bring, but I'm willing to talk. So
I learn something every time you're on. So if even if it's just me, we're learning. So thank you.
Yeah, we always continue the conversation. Tim's always been very good at joining some of our rooms on Clubhouse, and always good feedback from Tim. Got a breadth of experience, and so that's part of what we're going to be talking about here today. So, Tim, if you want to just introduce yourself, your role, who you work for, what the company does, and we'll start from there.
Sure. I'm Tim Shope, Vice President of Digital Transformation Services for Endress+Hauser in the U.S. We are about a $4 billion process instrumentation company, a global company headquartered out of Rheinach, Switzerland. We make pressure, temperature, flow, level, analytical Raman sensors, spectral analysis sensors, basically every instrumentation needed in most process applications today. We support those, and it's kind of a unique opportunity to be part of the digital transformation of E&H, because I actually don't have just what we can do from our product standpoint or the things that we can do to empower our products to be more digitally enabled. But I also have the internal digital transformation as well. So our business processes and business systems and analytics that we're doing internally, and it's really kind of unique because you find a lot of things that you need to do internally, and you say, okay, well, this technology could actually aid a customer in solving some of their process issues. So whether you're looking at business transactions or sales funnels or forecast, or it's all still math and it's all still data. Whether you're trying to predict where a process is headed or whether you're trying to predict where your quarter is going to end, it's still kind of the same stuff, which is unique. The business side is over the past 4 months, I've learned a lot. That was not my domain expertise. I come from a process control and automation background, and it's been fun seeing both sides of it.
Oh, that's amazing. Very cool. Yes, I feel like it is. We're still very much segregated in these boxes, somewhat silos with business and manufacturing, I think. But that's the great thing about Industry 4.0. I think it's going to break down a lot of those internal barriers. But I love your background, Tim. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've got on your background there? Because that's awesome. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, so at Endress+Hauser and across our rep organization, we have a number of process training units. And as you can see from the background, there's basically one of every instrument that E&H makes. And a number of them are on HART, some are on Ethernet IP, some are on Profibus, Profinet. We use different field bus communications. Every one of those instruments is wireless. So we have our Smart Blue iPhone app. If you walk in that facility with your iPhone, every one of those devices is transmitting wireless, either wireless HART or Bluetooth, and you can see every one of them. You can calibrate them off of your iPhone. You can check the health status, process variable, all directly to your phone when you pair it to them. We've had 10 of those in the U.S. This is our latest one. It's in Pearland, Texas, just outside of Houston. We've got another large one in our U.S. headquarters in Greenwood, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis. And so we do hold trainings there for new instrument techs, for new E&H customers. We do a lot of seminars in there, and it's just a great place to be able to expose people to not only our technologies, but process control technologies. There's a full-blown DCS attached to them as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, give it up for the connected worker, right? That's very much like you come in, you connect with your iPhone, and it's game
Yep.
on from there. So that's very Industry 4.0.
It
Yeah, that's
is
cool.
compared to 10 years ago to talk to a HART instrument, you either went through the DCS or you went out there and connected to it with a HART communicator and physically hardwired it. And now you can pull your iPhone out or your iPad and communicate to it directly.
Yeah, that's definitely a significant change, because I also remember when I was working at Rockwell, where we were integrating with our customers, helping them integrate E&H equipment, and it was typically to connect it to the SCADA system or to
Right.
the historian and other things, right? And but now you're looking at, yes, that you're still doing that, but at the same time, there's other ways to communicate with it and get data out of it. And so the first step is making it easy for a technician to actually go on around and check on the equipment and also easily configure it. I mean, configuring stuff from an iPhone is just so much easier than have to go and send codes back to it through your SCADA system and get it configured. So that's definitely a big change. But that's the interesting start of our discussion around that. I would like to get a better understanding when you say, digital transformation, both for your customers and for yourself. So for your customers, I'd be interested to see what are you working on there with that type of equipment. So are you making those sensors connect in other ways than traditionally? So, for example, straight to the cloud kind of thing, or is it just that kind of remote connectivity with an iPhone, but all the other information goes, like the traditional historical data, goes straight into a SCADA system? Are there other ways to do that today?
Well, I think it's scalable and it's all the above. And I think that's the thing that excited me the most about coming to Endress+Hauser is if you look at a digital world that is literally starving for data, we're creating the data, right? We're beyond the edge. We're the intelligent field device. And if we can get that intelligence directly to the cloud, then you can start serving data in a whole different way with a lot less engineering and complexity and configuration time that transpired 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago when Hart, or some of the field buses first came out. Everybody was like, great, we can extract this data from these intelligent instruments out there, but then the complexity, the overhead cost of more processors, the configuration of how to get that data from the instrument through the DCS and then to an asset management system took a lot of, you had to run that like a project from a configuration standpoint, and then somebody had to maintain the asset management system to ensure that you were getting those benefits. Today with our Natillion, we basically have a asset management in the cloud. So all these devices that you see behind me can get directly to Natillion from the cloud. So we have real-time data, we have real-time analytics, we have real-time health of those assets. So if a Coriolis meter develops a issue or you have some corrosion or buildup inside of it, those predictive analytics or those diagnostic information is in the cloud already. You don't have to write code in your DCS. You don't have to propagate it anywhere. And Natillion is readily available on your iPhone. So those alerts, those messages come through a Nemora looking interface, and it's propagated out to the right people at the right time with little to no configuration.
Yeah, there's been a trend to kind of reduce the kind of on-premises infrastructure, especially in the oil and gas industry and other process industries, because those systems are huge, and a lot of them in the old days were not really web enabled, so that if you have an update on the software, you would have to go out to 300 individual computers and upgrade the client software on them, etc. So there's more and more of that, trying to reduce that whole infrastructure and go straight to the cloud. So when you do that with your sensors, do you enable your customers to directly get the data into their cloud, or do you have an infrastructure like a SaaS solution where you get into a ENH cloud and then make it available to the customers kind of cloud to cloud or something else? How do you normally do that?
We can do it a couple of different ways. Our Natillion platform is running. It's running in AWS, so it has an open API, a REST API. It has an OPC UA interface, so we can pull it into our cloud environment and then push it to wherever it needs to go from an API interface. One of the things you brought up, Ian, is Ingersoll Rand. You guys are digitizing compressors, right? And you're
Yep.
getting that to the cloud, so you have predictive analytics on the health of that compressor. That's one of the things that you you look at different ways to communicate. And today, a OEM or a skid builder or a machine builder can attach our instrumentation, and they'll use a PLC or a controller or something to control that skid, and all that will be physically wired, but we can drop a wireless gateway on that device, collect all the information from the 10 or 12, 13 sensors on there, get that into the cloud. Once you've got it there, then you can apply ML, AI, whatever you want to do from a predictive analytics, and we're very, very close to being able to do that almost autonomously with little to no configuration um, at all. If you look at technologies like AWS SiteWise that creates an asset hierarchy in the
Mm-hmm.
cloud, then you can start deploying them across an enterprise. You can remotely deploy, remotely maintain. Once you get the data there, the options are limitless. It's more about getting the connectivity and getting it there securely, and then
Right.
the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I did want to bring up, we've got a couple of comments. Thank you guys for your questions and comments here. One LinkedIn user is asking you, Tim, what advice would you have for new graduates in engineering?
Find your passion. Figure out what it is that gets you up in the morning, and you'll be great at it.
I
I mean,
love
I,
that.
I, I never set out and said, this is what I want to do for a living, right? It's evolved through my career. Honestly, I kind of got started in this because in high school I liked car stereo, and I got a little addicted to frequency analyzers and spectral analysis, and somehow that led me to the Navy and an advanced electronics program and missiles and radar, and somehow that got me here. But
That's
fi-
amazing.
find your passion, and
It is
you'll.
interesting when you're saying that too. I see a lot of people from the Navy in the manufacturing, and a lot of people from submarines, which is kind of interesting. It's just a weird trend that I hear. Yeah, I'm a former submarine something technician or something like that. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a great education. It's a great start. You get at 22 years old, you're maintaining millions of dollars worth of hardware. You're probably supervising 10 or 15 people, and when you come out at 22, 23 years old, you got a wealth of experience.
Absolutely.
That's
So
awesome.
so Tim, when you in your role work with customers, what's your kind of day to day look like? If you, how are you mainly, instructing your people on how to work with them, or do you go to the customers and kind of give them, here's the architecture you should be looking at, or what's your kind of day to day look like in how you interact with your, and I'm sure it's like all over the place, but just give us some examples.
Well, that's actually the beauty of it, is it is all over the place. I'm never bored. It's not the same day in, day out. I do try to spend time with customers, understanding their challenges. Right. I don't look at digital transformation as, I've got this hammer. Let me find a nail to use it on. You got to go figure out what are their business challenges, what are their operational challenges, and then what technologies can you employ, or maybe it's not things that you do. Maybe it's just connecting the dots for them to connect them to other people like this community that can help them solve their business challenges. Right. We make instrumentation that we don't do everything, but I know a lot of people, and I can probably help you find somebody that can help solve your problem with some technologies. And honestly, that is the most satisfying part of my job, is being able to ideate and figure out how do we solve challenges, and in a modern infrastructure and architecture way, rather than relying on a lot of engineering effort and a lot of manpower like we would have done 20 years ago. How do we let intelligence drive the decisions, and data drive the decisions? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, like I said, I have kind of internal and external digital transformation. So I have responsibility for the B2B, and how our customers interact with Endress through Endress.com, how we deliver to customers from order to delivery. So that creates a whole nother opportunity of leveraging AI and some automation around order entry, and simplifying your offer, and improving your customer experience online. So it's literally, in the morning I can be doing B2B and B2C, and then in the afternoon I can be sitting down with a process control manager or a digital transformation officer of a large food producer, and figuring out how are you going to produce 5 years from now. So it's a blast.
Yeah.
That's amazing too, because it's really about that continuity planning. What do your needs look like right now, and then can you forecast those needs? And I think that from what I hear when I have conversations with people, that's driving a lot of value for the IoT and Industry 4.0 space. Is like that's the thing. Like we don't have to walk in one day and the line's down. We can predict when the line's going down. We can predict when we need to replace a part, and that's making everything so much more efficient. I do want to address Alex Feld. You also had a comment about the interconnectivity, probably, of the machinery when we were just talking there. Cloud needs internet, or it's internet able, was his comment. Tim, do you have any feedback for him on that?
Everybody uses the term cloud kind of in the abstract or interchangeably. I think there's hybrid where you can have stuff on-prem, which, you are Ethernet enabled. You may not be on the internet, but cloud is when you're using someone else's compute cycles in a internet environment, whether that's completely on-prem or off-prem, doesn't really matter. It's just it's a virtual computing environment that once you get the data there, you can basically do whatever you want to. You can share it between different applications. You can share it between different clouds. It's not public information, but it's in a public space that everybody can, with the right access, can get to.
So basically, what you're doing with your cloud application is that you have an API, and then you can then help work with either integrators or the end manufacturers and see if you want the data coming out, or the OEMs you're talking about, that create their own cloud environment. They can use that API, pull the data out in whatever structure they want, and then you use that to kind of show
Right.
information to a customer, or even enable the customer to get it directly into their systems and in their own API if that's what they're doing even.
Yes,
So that makes sense.
exactly.
Yeah. So
So like our Natillion Health or Asset Health, right? If we detect there's an issue with an instrument out there with a cloud-based CMMS via REST API, we could trigger that CMMS to trigger a workflow to write a work order to get the instrument repaired. The
right.
next step would be, we've got further diagnostics. We could actually have that CMMS trigger our heartbeat technology to run incremental diagnostics on the device remotely and give you more information as to what needed to be repaired or replaced.
That's cool. That's cool.
If you
I
take
hope
this,
that helps, Alex.
if you take it even further than that, right? If you start combining different stores of data where you may have an electromechanical asset that you can monitor how much energy is consuming to create X amount of pressure or flow with an instrument. Now you can create a pump curve, you can detect impeller wear. In the future, that with things that they're doing with 3D printing of stainless steel, those analytics could detect impeller wear and tell you when you're going to reach the curve that it makes sense to shut that pump down and replace the impeller. And you may have a 3D printer in the region that rather than having an impeller sitting on the
You print it.
storeroom shelf, you print it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm
Yes.
just waiting for all the auto mechanic places to have their own printer, so you don't have to all these expensive car parts if you make a dent in any of it. Just print one.
It will happen.
It will happen,
It will
absolutely.
happen.
If you can print rocket parts, you can definitely print car parts.
Absolutely. And so just
Yeah.
think about the capital money that you free up by not having all those parts sitting on a shelf.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a completely different world coming to
Yes,
us for sure.
absolutely.
And we're just in the middle of it, or maybe even in the beginning of it.
I think we're just in the beginning of it, but I tell people all the time, I think we're going to be kind of in the Star Trek replicator days, right? I need this, and you just punch in a code. And
We're just gonna call it a printer instead of a replicator, right?
Exactly.
Print me a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Right. Yes, definitely.
Cool.
Well, Alex said thank you, so I wanted him to. I wanted to say that I hope that helps. But let's get into some of the other stuff here for our conversation today before we go to any more comments. But can you kind of walk us through some of the challenges that arise on your day to day and how you are able to overcome those? What that looks like for you, that process. Could you share a little bit more about that with us?
Sure. Digital transformation, as I said earlier, is not necessarily about the technology. It is about changing workflows and work processes and how you transact business. And so some of the biggest challenges you find is you can go find an issue or a business challenge in any process. And then when you start trying to apply a digital solution to that, then you get some pushback of, well, we've tried this or we've tried this in the past, and this is how we've always done it, and we've got this process, and so it's more in a lot of ways it's around transforming a culture of how to think differently and act differently, more so than it is the technology enablement. I mean, just as we were just talking about wireless data out of an instrument that has traditionally always been wired, I think in the future, you're going to have less and less wired connectivity into a DCS or an automation platform. You're going to have a lot more measurements that may not be direct acting controls, but are just measurements for your MES, for supply chain, for raw materials, for energy consumption, etc. Is going to circumvent that DCS platform. It's not going to get wired into it anymore. It's going to go straight to a cloud application, and then it's going to come back down to an operational level to report on it, as opposed to everything being physically hardwired. So that's going to create new opportunities for process analytics. You're going to have the ability. I mean, we have a clamp on flow meter. So if you've got a clamp on flow meter that you can go clamp on a pipe, and now you can suddenly know the velocity and flow through that pipe, so you can start figuring out, where do I have cavitation, where do I have issues in my process, and you can move the thing around. If you've got it wireless, you can put the clamp on flow meter, or as many of them as you need out there. So you're really getting to the lick and stick. Where do I need to, instead of theoretically trying to calculate what's going on, you can just go put an instrument there and get it wired through the cloud without having to spend a lot of installation time and money.
So your devices, I'm assuming that some of them are still need power and some runs on battery,
Yes.
because
So
that's
we,
always, if you want to install something in a factory, sometimes it's a little bit hard to even just get a power outlet close to where you want to measure, and you got to schedule it and plan it and whatever. And but if you have something that's battery operated, then it's just a matter of plugging it in. And
Yep. And there's, in today's world, you look at some of the things that are going on with vibration sensing, they're actually harnessing
yes, yeah, trying to harness the power.
energy from the
Yeah,
vibration of the motor, or temperature of the
exactly.
motor, right? So there's self-powering vibration detection from harnessing vibration of the pipe, or the motor is sitting on. So it will power the instrument.
Yeah, there's even some that's starting to look at utilizing ambient light as a power source,
Yep.
and really looking at how much energy can you run it on, how little energy can you run, and how much can you pull out of just ambient light. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that right now. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. So I don't think that, into the future, I don't think, full blown 4 to 20 wire everything is going to be the answer for everything. That
Right.
those are going to be there for critical control loops, things that absolutely have to be controlled. But like, we make a cloud-based level transmitter that you literally can set on top of a chemical tote today, and within minutes you have the level and inventory of that chemical tote in our cloud, and we have a Natillion level that we can plug directly into a cloud-based MES, so you would know how much of what chemical you have sitting out there at any given moment.
Oh, wow. So instead of somebody having to, measure it manually, either through with a tool or whatever, you just set it on top
You
and it
literally set it on
reads it.
top of the poly tote, and it uses radar to measure the level, and it's got LTE modem built in. It's straight in the cloud the minute you drop it on there.
Oh, that's cool. That's
That is
that's
cool.
very cool.
So
So I
I
see
think,
that Alex is also asking a quick question more. So when you have this infrastructure where you pull data into the cloud, are you playing around with some digital twin technology as well to have digital twins of your sensors? I'm not sure exactly if it does make sense, but depending on how complex your components are, some of them might be a opportunity for digital twin. I'm not sure, but
so
he's asking.
one of the things that we do and are working on is not only, what our instruments are capable of doing, but also our project execution. Right, we do a lot of projects where we are the main instrumentation vendor, and that'll be in conjunction with typically an EPC for a greenfield operation.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of data that is created just from specing an instrument, designing the instrument, building and then commissioning the instrument. We actually create a digital thread that can empower and be fed into a much larger digital twin or BIM model or whatever you want to look at it from that perspective. So we, on the very front end of engineering that project, we are creating that digital thread all the way through Natillion actually, that can empower that digital twin of not only our instruments but a holistic infrastructure like this.
Yeah, of the equipment or the asset or whatever it is, or multiple assets. Yeah.
So we're building the core of that at the front end of the engineering effort of the project, and then we're making it all digital. We actually have a full-blown digital commissioning application. So as you go through startup and commissioning of a facility, all that is tracked, traced, orders or work orders are digitally assigned to different technicians to go test and calibrate and commission each instrument, and that's all summed up in a workflow, and then it's all handed over as a digital package to the customer at the end.
Nice.
So, so you're working with large manufacturers. With you working with integrators. I'm sure a lot of integrators are working with you on projects that they have, and they need some sensors and devices, etc. And you came from the integrator business before you went to Endress+Hauser.
Yep.
So what's the difference there, and how much are you using that you kind of know, know your customer basically, right? You're on the other end now suddenly, and able to help companies like the ones you worked for before that are integrators.
I think it's my background being in a couple of different spots in the industry is the breadth of knowledge that I've gained from that is you can't replace that. And a lot of people that I talk to in Endress+Hauser that have been here for 20 years, right? They tell me all the time, I'm looking at this through blue sunglasses, right? The ENH blue sunglasses. I only know what ENH has had me doing for 20 years. And the fact that I have worked for Rockwell, that I have worked for a system integrator, that I actually have been a process control manager and been a customer, it is a breadth of knowledge that is indispensable. I mean, I can have a conversation from any direction you want to have it, from how do our sensors, our instruments save a SI integration time, which equals money. How do you create more value for your customer on the back end? How do you create stickiness and attachment with a services offering that can include our instrumentation and our Natillion package on the back end? I think it allows me to look at the problem from all different sides because I've kind of walked a mile in each one of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing about having that more diversified background. And sometimes there's not, I think that we're so, from a career perspective, I think we're so driven towards one end goal, right? I mean, it's like this is the path, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the path. And in fact, I've heard the same before. It's like, the more diversified you are with your background, the better. The more experience from life and your careers previously, the better, because it does make you more aware of those challenges and of those specific needs, from the customer standpoint, from the integrator standpoint, from the supplier standpoint. So that's some really great advice, and I love that. Thank you, Tim. It's
But
very
yeah,
inspiring.
I think you can actually look at IT in a manufacturing environment as well as kind of the model. When
Hmm.
business systems started coming into play in the early 90s, you had some engineers and facilities that they were chemical engineers and mechanical engineers, and they got asked to go kick off this IBM mainframe AS400 MES platform, and they became the IT department eventually, right? That's where it came from. So that was a very innovative spirit. Mostly, in today's world, you can have an IT background as an educational background. That can be your degree. That didn't exist in the 90s. We had to figure this stuff out, and so I think you look at the IT OT convergence, what we're doing in OT today, we're actually kind of mimicking what happened in IT. We're just lagging by about 10 to 15 years. It's pretty pretty easy to see where we're going. All you got to do is watch where they went.
Yeah.
See, I would agree. I see a lot of those similarities too. And I think that that's kind of like, I don't know, I'm always with the circles, but you've got like IT at the top of the industry spectrum here, right? Industry sectors. And you can look around and see other industries kind of borrowing those same initiatives from IT and what they've done along the way. And I think manufacturing is very in line with that. They're very closely related. So thank you, Tim, for bringing that up. Ryan Treese. Hey, Ryan, we're going to give you a shout out. Also co-founder of the Industry 4.0 Club. He has a question. Which one of those previous roles have helped the most so far?
Without a doubt, my 7 years as process control manager, wearing boots, jeans, and a hard hat every day. Prior to that, I'd worked for Honeywell as an OEM or a vendor, and we thought we knew what was important, but it's not until you got woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning for the third night in a row that you really start figuring out what's really important. And you're walking in Monday morning into a operations meeting with the plant manager, and you got to explain why this, and this happened over the weekend, and it was the ability. I had responsibility for the whole facility. We had over 30,000 points of IO in the facility. We had every DCS known to man except for a Foxwell. And inside a paper mill, you've got a powerhouse, you got a chemical recovery facility, you got a pulp mill, you got paper machines, you got electromechanical, you got every aspect that you could ever imagine is sitting inside that fence. And it was 7 years of figuring a lot of stuff out. But without a doubt, that time as a customer, because as a customer, you get to see everybody else's go-to-market strategy, you get to see everybody else's technology, you get to see what's possible. You get to understand the capital buying process. You get to understand the fact that you're competing against your other production assets for capital money, right? It lets you know the buying process and what's going on the other side of the table.
I can just imagine as well coming to a customer and telling some of those stories, right? That kind of right away increases your credibility because you've been there, you've done that, you know what they have been struggling with, and then you can also really relate to what your company is now doing to alleviate some of these things.
Now, I've got a good friend in the industry. He calls it 1,000-yard stare, right? It's kind of like soldiers that have been in combat together. They you just know, right? Somebody that's been there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. That's so cool.
So the IT conversation, and I tell people all the time that IT won. Everybody talks about IT OT convergence. IT has won. It's the battle is fought. Their proximity to dollars, their ability to have a conversation with the CTO of a company and change the way a company manufactures or the way a company transacts business. OT doesn't have the access to the CTO that the IT players and the IT consultants and the business consultants do. So
yeah, and again, the more and more you get into the Industry 4.0, where you're pulling data into a cloud, you are now want to connect that back to the business system. So IT gets automatically involved in all that. So they want to make sure that that whole data flow is secure, cyber secure, and the data is up to date. All that kind of stuff. They get involved in that much more than in the past, where you had almost like a separate DCS system that was not connected to anything.
Yep.
And you were just operating the equipment, right? Now you're operating the equipment in a completely different way, and sometimes you even have AI operating it, bots operating it, and all of that. IT is definitely going to be involved in today. So yeah, I agree with you. IT has won, and they have the power.
Well, I think IT won when we all started carrying around smartphones. Like I think it's just innate to us. It's just it's innate to us. So it's like natural for us to be inclined to that. And really figure out how to use, that to the best of our abilities and really what the scope of that is. And it's very exciting for
It
sure
is. I mean,
to
we're
just
trying to figure
watch.
out how to use our personal enablement that the smartphone and other things have created for us in a more industrial setting. And like I said, it's pretty easy to look at the IT organizations, how they're operating and how they've done it to see kind of where OT has to go. Most organizations have a distributed IT infrastructure, right? You have 10 or 15 people sitting at the top of an enterprise making every decision of what's going to happen in a business system and an IT platform. And then that is distributed out through either consultants or IT providers, but they standardized it. Everybody's doing the same thing across a enterprise. You don't have the local facility saying, I'm going to use IBM Notes and everybody else can use, Office and Outlook. So I think the OT platforms, you're going to see much more consolidation across an enterprise. You're going to be creating value at a higher level in an enterprise. You're going to be having conversations with the digital transformation officers, the smart manufacturing officers. Those are the people that are going to cast the vision. You can look at the workforce today. I mean,
Yep.
trying to hire somebody in Oklahoma to put on boots and jeans and hard hat and go to work out there every day is getting more and more difficult every day.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, because I just think that we have this expectation of the tech being there, and that's one of the biggest reasons that I'm like, such an advocate of Industry 4.0 is I want to see manufacturing not only get to that end goal as a whole collective, but I also, I want that the smaller mid-sized enterprises to really have that same opportunity and availability as a lot of these larger companies as well. But yeah, that's amazing. Um,
But I look at it as how do we manufacture into the future? Because with the changing workforce, I think COVID taught us a lot about supply chain. We're still learning a lot about supply chain right now. If we can't produce and manufacture locally, regardless of what country you sit in, if you can't produce to some degree locally, then you are completely at the whim of every geopolitical issue. And without a workforce or without enough workforce, you have to automate and you have to do it smarter and you have to get better at it. And
Oh,
technology
absolutely.
is an enabler for that.
Definitely. So Mike Unger had a question, another co-founder of the I-40 Club. Hey there, Mike. Shout out. He says, Tim, working in a global company, what have you learned from other cultures that can help Americans in their digital transformation? That's a great question.
That is a great question because we have a Natillion board meeting every Friday where we actually pull our colleagues from China and Europe and everybody together, and we're all facing different challenges, right? I mean, back to the geopolitical issues. The things that you can do in a cloud-based environment in the US is very, very different than what you can do in China. The wants and needs in Europe, where honestly, Industry 4.0 got its start, is very much a German thing. They are further down the road in a lot of ways, but they're also kind of constrained in what they're thinking of how they're going to do some stuff. So we look at different regions as different opportunities for growth, opportunities to explore and fail fast. Right, we're not constrained by we have to do everything from a corporate level straight down. So it allows us to take different regional opportunities, develop them, and then see what'll scale. Well, will it just scale regionally or will it scale globally? But 9 times out of 10, they do tend to scale globally, maybe with some adaptation by region. But I think just like everything else, that diversity, that different line of thinking or different pain points, if you want to go back to some older vernacular, that are regionally different, helps you create a holistic system or a holistic offering that can solve all the challenges at once, hopefully.
hopefully.
That's amazing. Yes, thank you for that response. And thank you, Mike Unger, for an awesome question. Appreciate that.
Yeah, culture is always interesting, especially in big companies, because it's especially now you kind of gotten down some of the discussions around the new workforce, right? And culture is so critical to make sure that you are going with the change that is happening, right? I mean, you saw the successful companies over COVID was the one that could really agile change very quickly. You saw some companies change the culture. You saw also some companies change the entire manufacturing, start manufacturing COVID-related products,
Right.
like not overnight, but still, right? I mean, the culture is definitely important.
Yeah,
Culture,
you had
yeah,
tons of local distilleries that suddenly started making hand sanitizer instead of making rum or whatever their vodka or whatever they were
yeah,
making.
yeah.
But
Bourbon in Kentucky,
absolutely,
I think. Yeah.
that's a waste of a good distillery if you turned it into hand sanitizer instead of making bourbon.
And it's not that they ran out of need of more bourbon and rum and stuff. I'm sure there was a lot extra being consumed during COVID as well.
I'm pretty sure my consumption went up sitting in the house.
I worked for an aluminum supplier once. They did just the cold roll aluminum, but they were a supplier to Budweiser.
Yep.
And during the 08, 09 recession, they had like
Oh,
record sales.
yeah.
They said they had like the sales were off the chart.
You're in the alcohol business during most emotionally charged moments. Your business picks up.
Yep, that's the relief valve.
Exactly.
That's what I've heard. Yes. So
Exactly.
Well, we
popular
get into a
time.
little bit more on the personal side. I think with the we now disclosed our alcohol consumption increase here over the last couple of months, so or last couple of years. So while we're at that, one interesting question we always want to hear from somebody is so what influences have you had? What either people or events or what have influenced you in your past to where you are today? That you can nail down. Like it's not too. But so, is there some couple examples of hey, this person or whatever it is really influenced you what you are today?
So I think probably one of the biggest influences was when I got out of the Navy. I went to work for a company called MeasureX that was making gauging and measurement properties for paper machines as paper was being made. They were using beta radiation, IR to measure moisture, X-ray to measure um, inorganic components in the paper, clay, TiO2, those kind of things. We use in spectral analysis for color sensors. The company was headquartered in Cupertino, California. The campus is now part of Apple's campus. So they were attracting the best and the brightest out of Silicon Valley, from nuclear physicists to software designers. And I got the opportunity at a very young age to go hang out with some of the brightest people I've ever been around. They were some of the most eloquent programmers I've ever seen. They could control an entire paper machine with 64K of memory. And you look at that and you compare that to what we do today, we seem quite wasteful, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
those are
but
the days.
but um, there were a couple of people in that company that really ignited a passion in me of what's possible. And one of them was a MIT nuclear physicist, and guy was brilliant. Another guy was he came from England, and he did our color sensor stuff, and he had such a passion for finding something that was pure white. It was amazing. But John wrote. He was from England, so he spoke very eloquently, but he wrote even better. And our color sensor manual was just a good read. Forget what you were learning about what that sensor did or how it did or anything else. It was literally just it was like reading a novel. It was the guy was amazing. There was another gentleman in that company that he had a background in seismic activity, and he wrote the CD control wave model algorithm because of his work from chasing down earthquakes in California. So
That's
just
cool.
that, yeah, just that innovative spirit and being able to be around those people and the things that they were doing at that, they were doing statistical process control in the late 80s, early 90s. So back when Motorola was doing all their commercials around Six Sigma and all that stuff, they'd been doing it for 10 years before any of those commercials ever came out. And just being around that company, I think, was the catalyst to get me where I am today. So it's not just one person; it was a complete company and a culture that was amazing.
There's so much value in a strong culture. And I think that's sometimes I get a little on my soapbox, but I feel like your culture either makes or breaks you as a company and as your like legacy, so to speak, so that's awesome that you remember that and you had such an awesome experience.
Yep.
So are you still reaching out to those guys when you have a deep technical problem that you need to solve? So it's like analytics or something, or?
Um, I have in the past. Some of them are, very much retired at this point. There's still a couple of them that are, kind of, I don't know, mentors that I still talk to every now and then from a guidance standpoint. But they're they're probably 10 to 15 years ahead of me in their career. So a lot of them have shut it down, and they say every day's a Saturday.
That's
Exactly. I
awesome.
got some of those too.
But I do have some other influencers that are, in some significant roles in the industry today that absolutely, we kind of grew up together, and we can have a back office conversation of, hey, I'm being exposed to this, and this. Give me your suggestions, and those kind of things. Those are relationships that don't require NDAs.
Right. Right. And especially from an E&H perspective, you are still even connected to those companies today,
Yes.
in some way or another, right? So there's always that connection as well.
Yes, absolutely.
That's cool. So when you're not working in front of your computer or in the office on E&H, what's some of your other interests that you enjoy that you could talk about?
Um, I play probably too much golf. Not
Okay.
not not as good at it as I once was, but I still play basically every Saturday, hopefully, depending on rain and weather and that kind of stuff. And oddly enough, a couple of years ago, I became a runner. So I run, I don't know, 10 to 15 miles a week. So get up in the morning, go for a 20, 30-minute jog in the morning, helps me clear my head, helps me figure out, what the day is going to look like, or hopefully what the day is going to look like. It's my time to think and ideate and figure out, you know, what do we want to try to accomplish that day. So those are the two activities that I leverage to kind of shut it down and go do something different for a little bit.
Yeah, we all need a kind of an outlet sometimes just to be by ourselves and think through things, and that's definitely a way to do it. Either
Yeah.
golf, I'm sure that happens at doing golf as well. So unless you are with a big group of guys and you're gonna be talking shop or something instead, but if it's you just doing your golfing alone, that's a lot of hours just to think about all kinds of stuff.
Well, we got a group of guys that play together just about every Saturday. There's probably about 16 of us, and so it's just a lot of fun, a lot of ribbing and trash talking, and
I'm sure, yeah.
couple of shekels on the line at the end of the round. So it's kind of fun.
All the guy things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
we
very
can't we
cool.
can't broadcast half of that.
Oh, that homie. I'll let you guys do that sometime. I'll I'll see myself out of that one. But what about books? Do you read much? Are there some books that have influenced you along the way that you would suggest to anybody in the audience today?
Honestly, today most of the books I look at or listen to, I don't read as much as I used to because I'm constantly on a plane or in a car or whatever, and it's just easier to listen to almost sounded old and said book on tape, but
Audible or something.
Audiobook.
audibles, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the map with that. A lot of them are. I'm trying to get some insight into businesses as a service, and so I'm listening to a lot of that, trying to figure out ways to create value in what I'm doing today as a subscription service, which I think is measurement as a service. Seems like a great opportunity, but then again, you got to figure out, okay, so what's the advantage over owning the instrument and owning the data and everything else? So unless you're willing to figure out how to take on the liability of that instrument performing and that instrument being completely accurate. So that's kind of the things I've been listening to lately is some services related stuff and trying to get a vision of what good could look like 5 years from now, not just today.
Yeah, that's cool. We talked a little bit about equipment as a service, and it is a very interesting topic, but there's not a lot of actually companies doing it, and I think it's just a matter of it maturing, and then probably there's some technical tax and finance and stuff that needs to be ironed out as well. It's probably a little bit easier with, yeah, I don't know if it's easier if it's sensors and devices as opposed to equipment itself. It's still complex to figure out how do you, especially if you are going through OEMs, etc. Right? It becomes a pretty complex infrastructure to manage. But it's definitely something where I think there's huge potential from a revenue perspective if you can tie in a long-term agreement as opposed to just sell the equipment and then hope for the ongoing service revenue coming after it. So there's some opportunities there. Absolutely, very
Yeah, 'cause,
interesting.
I mean, you're talking about really transforming an industry of how it is acted to date
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
how it could
Yep.
act, right? But you've got to understand, why does it act the way it does today? What are those enablers? And then how do you create an alternative path to that that is more fortuitous to the end user without being too putting your own company at too much risk or too much jeopardy? Because it always comes to, this is one of the things I learned as being a client, is it always really comes down to liability, right? Who's going to be responsible for I'm not producing in the middle of the night, and who's going to care enough to be in here and take care of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that as a service models are, I mean, I think that there's a lot of value there. And I think that that's just going to increase over time. I mean, for myself, for example, I mean, I am 100% dependent on SaaS. I mean, could not operate without it at all. So to me, when I'm looking at other models like robots as a service or equipment as a service, it's like it's a great opportunity for smaller companies to really get some skin in the game. Whereas they don't have to do a whole capital investment project.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of value out there for that kind of thing if you can find that market that has that problem of adding either the sensors or the automation or whatever. They couldn't do that otherwise. Definitely.
So I think there is real opportunity in it around OEMs. As mentioned, machine as a service, right? Then you could have instrumentation as a service on that machine, right? So it could be a joint venture of how to get that centrifuge or package boiler or whatever the case may be out there, and then get it to the cloud so that you have a digital twin of it there, and you're doing predictive analytics around it and how well is it performing, and then you can do a cost analysis of providing that boiler as a service, right? You could literally just be selling steam. You can be selling BTUs. So I think there's potential. It's just the industry still has to transform to some degree. Maybe some of that is um, people leaving the industry and the next generation coming along with different lines of thinking. I think that in particularly process control and automation, it's a mature industry, and it's very traditional by nature. It's very risk averse by nature. So I think you're going to have some evolution as the workforce changes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be driven by the workforce changes a lot.
I can say silver tsunami. I've got gray hair, so I can talk about it.
Yeah, that's really going to impact us as well. I think that there's a lot of confusion with that sometimes working in, working in recruiting myself, and just, the whole adage of, well, nobody wants to work. I don't know that it's necessarily that. I don't think that people are really realizing what scale of a population we're at right now,
Yes.
with all of these generations, and what numbers they're actually making up. So when we do go through that silver tsunami, for example, it's gonna, it is gonna make a huge impact on our labor market, and our supply. So yeah, no, that's all very interesting stuff. Sorry to sorry to totally derail, but
So I've got a question
interesting.
for you as a recruiter or in this industry, and I've got a recent data point from this. We had a job that was posted that the title didn't make sense for what we wanted the role to be, and literally we had this job posted out there for like 2 months, and we had 5 applicants. And we
Hmm.
sat down with a couple of people on the team that were a little younger and had a little different vernacular, and we rewrote the job description, and we changed the title of it to data scientist. And within 2 weeks, we had 200 applicants.
Yes.
I mean, it's just
That's a great strategy. And sometimes you have to do that. So sometimes when I take a job order, I have to read it, reassess it, and then figure out a way to like reach their target audience. So if you're looking for, that's your target audience and that is their vernacular, like you're saying, then that's, kind of the verbiage that you need to include in there. Definitely.
yeah, it was our talent acquisition team, after we went back and rewrote it, they were like, "How did you know that was why we weren't getting people?" I said, "Look, these people don't call themselves that; they call themselves this, right?"
Yes.
And then depending on what industry too. So
Yes.
like a process controls engineer, Tim, is a different, that person in pulp paper, in chemicals, in steel,
Hmm.
that person looks different than an automotive process control engineer.
Yes.
So
And
that's a thing too. Yeah. You have to really figure out what that is and break it down. Yeah.
And then
so
it's the same goes with, like, you talking about data scientists. A lot of data scientists will look into companies that are doing data science on customer demographic data and behavior data, but they don't even think about manufacturing has huge opportunities in this area. So you got to really figure out how do you present it in a way that makes them interested, and can see that their background not working in manufacturing could be used in manufacturing, as long as it's kind of written the right way. That it's a hugely, especially in manufacturing, it's so important that we start getting young people interested, because there is so much opportunity. And we talk with some of the younger manufacturing people in our community a lot, and they did not even consider manufacturing. They just, a lot of them just came in by accident and they love it, right? There's so much opportunity here, and that's the same with me. I started out in healthcare software, and I'm
right.
now in manufacturing too, and automation, and I love it too. So there's just so much stuff here.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, the young lady that helped us rewrite the job description. She works for me. She's a data scientist. She came from Cornell, and Cornell actually has an industrial analytics program today.
Yeah, it's starting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Well, hey
That's
Tim,
awesome. Well,
we
you
are
guys did
at
good.
the, yeah, we're a little bit over at the hour we planned, but I would I would say I had really enjoyed the conversation. A little bit more deeper into Tim Shope than we normally get from our clubhouse rooms, but I have really enjoyed it today, and getting to know what you do, and what manufacturing automation people do it at your level, and how they got there. It's been a very, very great conversation. I really enjoy it. And before we end, I'd like you to see if you have a last thought or comment that you want to make sure we get before we close this LinkedIn Live.
No, I think it's just a tremendous time to be part of the industry. It's evolving. If you think it's going fast now, just hang on. Wait 3 years. I truly believe that the way the industry buys, the way the industry deploys, is going to go through a quantum shift in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's going to be a great time to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
You can shape the future.
That's exciting. I'm excited. I'm stoked. So I'm excited to watch for sure. And like always, thank you for letting me just participate in the conversation, and just be a part of the action, because I do think it's I agree. I think it's just gonna blow up, and it's gonna be um, a lot more beneficial for production needs, but also for the workforce. And that's what's most exciting for me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So before we close, Ann, do you want to quickly just introduce our next LinkedIn Live in 2 weeks?
Sure, yes. And I also want to make a point to kind of thank everybody for coming in today, and all of your amazing comments and questions. Ryan Treese, Mike Unger, Alex Feld, thank you guys so much for your participation and for tuning in. For next, let's see, not next week, but the Thursday after, because this is a 2-week series. Our next guest is going to be Catalina Nunes, and she is the Director of Engineering at Raven AI. So we are super excited to talk to her and learn a little bit more about what a Director of Engineering does in their day-to-day life, and a little bit more about her career journey as well.
Oh, great. Again, Tim, I have really enjoyed today. Appreciate you taking the time. We will look forward to seeing you come back in our rooms again with some comments and insights. We always enjoy that, so please feel free to continue that. But other than that, I will end this with thanking you, and we will see everyone next week, starting Monday, either on Clubhouse or LinkedIn.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.